DDG episode 143. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? How's it going?
Good. Very tired.
Yeah.
Very long week last week, and now it just tied into another long week. So it's college move-in for my company, and I had the CEO in my store last week. So that's been fun.
Yeah, it sounds busy, and I'm still getting into the flow of my new job. It's definitely been like a fun summer for me and Dave, trying to rebalance like work life and obviously podcast life. We're getting there. We need to figure something out by September when like video games release.
Yeah.
I think there's video games releasing starting in September. It's hard to tell what's going on now, but I'm pretty sure stuff's coming out soon.
Like the last 10 days, like moving my daughter into her dorms, the CEO in my store, helping out at the other college store, getting Owen ready to go back to school, getting Angela ready to go back to school, but school work for her, so it's like just there's month of August is just crazy in general. Thankfully, there's not a ton of stuff out right now that's drawing my attention. But it's just because it's just come home and watch TV and, nap. So. All right, we are Digital Days Gaming. We're a weekly podcast that post every Thursday on podcast services. If you could leave us a review on any of those services, if you're able to, that is super, super helpful. We also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming. We are live now. Typically, it's Monday night or Tuesday night. Like I said, twitch.tv /Digital Days Gaming. You can follow us there. That's free. You can subscribe to us if you choose to. That's $5. You can link your Twitch account with your Amazon account and get Prime Gaming. Get a bunch of cool free stuff, whether it's anything lately. There's been skins and early access to stuff and free games on Twitch stuff on Prime Gaming. But the biggest benefit you have for that is that you do get a free subscription to a streamer of your choice. If that's us, that's great. If you're continuing to do that, that's awesome. Please check that it's not expired. It does not auto-renew. So, and again, we don't have to be live. If you're listening to the audio version of this and it's a Friday afternoon, you're driving home from work, and you're maybe stuck at a traffic light, open your Twitch app up and just search for us and click subscribe. If just check it out. We don't have to be live for you to do it. You don't have to be in your car to do it either. So any of that stuff is always super helpful. All the other links to join in and hang out with the community are in the show notes. Twitch is there, Discord's there, Facebook's there, Twitter's there, Patreon's there, Teesprings is there. Everything's there. So please feel free to check those out. And as always, following is free, sharing is free, and Patreon or Twitch subscribing does have a cost. And if you're able to do that, that is super, super helpful. So thank you guys for that. I think it's going to be a light week this week, so we're going to throw it into some news real quick.
Yeah, gaming news is kind of slowed down. I mean, it'll pick up next week since we have Gamescom happening, I believe. One Night Live or whatever Jeff Keighley's Gamescom show is. That is next week, so everything's kind of chill right now. But we did get word that Disney and Marvel are going to be holding their first game showcase on September 9th. And this will be a showcase that will cover Marvel games, Disney games, Pixar games, and Star Wars games. So Disney's Dreamlight Valley, Marvel's Midnight Suns, Lego Star Wars, The Skywalker Saga will all be there in some form, either to show off in new footage in terms of Disney's Dreamlight Valley and Midnight Suns. And then I guess there might be some DLC coming to Skywalker Saga potentially. And then the big thing is it is being reported that the new Amy Hennig Marvel game will be revealed there. Don't know what capacity that is going to end up looking like in terms of like, hey, are we going to get a trailer? Are we just going to get like Amy Hennig just talking about like what character is going to be covered and what the story might unfold? We don't know yet, but that is being reported that it is going to finally be there, and that's something Dave can scratch off his list of like projects he's wondering about.
Yeah,
that was probably announced too soon. We'll finally have an answer. But this is kind of cool that we're gonna get a Marvel showcase. This is taking place during D23, which is like the big Disney like fan convention. So a lot of exciting things are going to be happening that weekend, because it's usually where Disney announces like new theme park rides, and it seems like every year they announce a new Marvel ride or a new Star Wars ride. So including games in this is just showing that like Disney is committed to doing this stuff. And
Do you think
working
we
with
we see
partners.
Ubisoft's? Is it Ubisoft or is it Bethesda?
EA.
No, the Indiana Jones game.
I could see that, yeah, because it is. They did say Lucasfilms will be there.
But is that? I'm sorry. Who's making? Is that Bethesda?
Yeah, it's Bethesda's publishing it, but it's going to be Machine Head Games, the developer.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't
Yeah,
remember.
they did mention Lucasfilm. So
They don't have Avatar, right?
technically they do because they own 20th Century Fox, and they did put in a press release 20th Century Fox games will be there, but they didn't say Ubisoft.
And then, do you think that we get another release date for Midnight Suns on this day?
I think now we're at the point where Midnight Suns will not get a release date until maybe like a 3 months out to a release. So if the game's coming out January, maybe we get a release date, but I think it'd be too dangerous for them to put another date out there.
We're getting really close. I mean, I know, like, I'm half joking, but I'm also half serious about my 90-day thing. Like, that's very important to me. We're getting very close to the end of August, and therefore that means we're getting very close to the 90 days from Thanksgiving. And I think releasing a game in the month of December is suicide. And so we're going to know, I feel like we're going to know, like, we might get a couple sleeper, like, small things, like, maybe during the September 9th event from Disney. Like, we might get a small independent game that comes out in October or November that we hadn't heard about or only heard a little bit about. But we're pretty much getting to the point where when we hit Labor Day, like, we know what the rest of the year's lineup's going to be, and including delays. Like, I don't expect to hear anything like in September, October be delayed that was supposed to come out in November. Similar to like Hogwarts Legacy just came out and said, you know, they never gave a date, but they always said 2022, and now they're saying like February, I think. So like, they've not necessarily ran away, but I mean, it's looking very, very easy, slam dunkish for God of War right now. If God of War holds their date, which I think they will. So
yeah, especially in terms of like the sales. Like, it's going to be competing against Modern Warfare 2 this holiday, and that's it. Game of the Year, I think, like, Elden Ring will still have that locked up, just because that's where media is.
Accessibility gets into it, too, though. Like, people...
Not with the media that are voting for this
I know, but playing
stuff,
the game. So. Like, if they finish this, what was supposed to be a trilogy, they finish this in 2 games, which we're led to believe they are, and there's a really cool, like, bow tied onto this Kratos Atreus story. Like, it could do it. It could push Elden Ring out.
Yeah, I do believe if there's anything that can push Elden Ring out, it is going to be God of War. Though I worry that there already might be a slant against God of War, since they said, like, we're combining the 2 games into one, to where either the response is going to be...
it felt rushed.
It felt rushed, or it was too dragged out.
Drawn out, yeah. This could have been 2 10-hour games instead of 1 25-hour game.
Yeah, it's where I feel like they put themselves in a corner that if they don't execute on every aspect of the game,
I could see that
it's going to be held
yeah.
against them, which is a shame that could potentially happen. But yeah, we're looking at, like, if you're Sony Santa Monica, your PlayStation, you're looking at God of War, like, there's no competition unless Modern Warfare 2 like
has
somehow,
an amazing campaign, like puts their campaign on steroids. So, like,
and the multiplayer is like as good as the Modern Warfare 1's multiplayer was. That feels like it's the only competition, because you have a lot of games that are coming out this year that are just kind of coming out. Like, I'm pretty sure I asked you out last week and I didn't look it up. I'm like, I'm pretty sure Saints Row is this week, and it's like, okay.
And Gotham, the more they at this point in time, I just want them to stop showing Gotham Knights and just release the game, because the more they show, like, the less I get geeked about.
Yeah, they just released the first 15 minutes,
like Red Hood trailer or something. I didn't see the first 15 minutes, but I think I'm still gonna have fun playing that game. Like, when you play it and you're playing it with a friend, you're gonna have fun playing that game. But I don't think it's gonna have a storytelling level of the other Arkham games.
Oh, I think that's almost a guarantee. Like, it's going to have to survive just on, like, you and your buddies bullshitting while playing the game. Like most co-op games kind of get a free pass on, like, story for, being fun to bullshit with people. But yeah, Disney, like, is showing that they're committed to, giving the games a try. To your point, yeah, I didn't even think of like the Indiana Jones game could totally show up. It's been like a year, 2 years since that was announced. So
I feel like we'd get even if we just get a teaser trailer with like Indiana Jones : the story of whatever, like,
yeah, just a shot of like, are we getting like young indie, old indie,
right.
like just a character model would probably go a long way.
Give a voice actor so the internet can lose its mind and say it's not Harrison Ford and get pissed off.
Man, it's funny though because that's gonna happen. People.
But what if it is
off.
Harrison Ford?
Then the game's gonna probably be bad because he just like doesn't kind of give a shit anymore. So that voice acting is going to be very phoned in. Like Harrison Ford's probably at the point where he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna record this in my bathroom. Like, just send me a microphone. I now I'm a little bit more excited because I'm just like, okay, like. I was excited for the Amy Hennig thing because I want to know, like, what you're going to attach, like, what character is Amy Hennig going to write?
Do they have enough control? And I guess they own, the IPs and stuff like that, but, like, is this where we see, like, a trailer for Fallen Order 2 as well?
Yeah, they did say... Yeah, no, they did say that they are going to have Lucasfilm games, so technically...
Right. Yeah, I just didn't know if EA's like, no, you're not showing our game at your event.
I would imagine, because D23 is a huge thing for Disney and Star Wars people, that I'm sure EA is like fine with being like, here's an extended trailer or something. I don't think EA would be like, hey, we're going to do a big gameplay reveal here. I think they'll give them something.
Or EA releases the trailer like on the September 8th and says, "Look, tune into D23 for more tomorrow" or something.
Yeah, or the reverse of that of like D23 has exclusive trailer and then at the end of it it's like gameplay next week on twitch.tv/respawn. I could see that. I'm just so curious about like what Amy Hennig's going to be, what character they're going to cover.
How long has she been working on it?
I want to say like 2 or 3 years. I want to say.
So we should see a trailer then, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I want to say there was announced sometime last year.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but I'm also pandemic. Years. Time means nothing, so it's kind of hard to remember off the top of my head.
I mean, technically, our show is not 3 years old.
Yeah, so we know it was within that time frame of 142 episodes. I just can't imagine what character, because like we already know EA's doing a Black Panther game.
Yeah.
Guardians was just done. Avengers was just done. Insomniac has Spider-Man and Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see her doing a Deadpool game, especially Activision just got done with Deadpool a couple years ago. Ultimate Alliance was just, that happened 2-3 years ago as well. Like, I don't know if they're going to just go with like an obscure... And then you have all the Midnight Suns characters.
Is it Captain America?
I don't know, because like Captain America is going to be in Midnight Suns.
Yeah, or is it Falcon? Like, is it?
I guess you could do like a really good story. Is she going to write
a cool narrative of Captain of his name is completely escaping me right now, but giving it to Sam? Like, is that a whole story arc that you give off in a video game and
I could totally
more character
see
building?
A Winter Soldier Falcon game from Amy Hennig would probably be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I would imagine Disney is still going to be in the mindset of, like, you're only making games about characters that we're going to make a movie on eventually.
Or I would love a really cool, like, as dumb as this sounds, because for whatever reason, even though I didn't like the last movie as much, but, like, I want a Thor game of him as, like, 17 to 22 years old in, like, my mind. Like a teenager Thor.
Yeah, that would be interesting, especially because like we were supposed to kind of get that in the first Thor movie of like, oh, he's just kind of like a dumbass who just doesn't care about his powers.
Like he just learns how to use his hammer, and he's still you're still trying to like use it and still breaking stuff inadvertently as you're getting comfortable with it.
Yeah, I also would love a Fantastic Four game, but I feel like if you do that, you're going to want a co-op experience.
And I don't think Amy Hennig wants. Amy Hennig likes to tell linear narrative-driven stories.
Yeah, and that's the problem I'm having of just like what character would work that probably has a movie lined up, because that's how Disney likes to operate.
Yeah, I mean,
like a lot of the characters are already tied up. So.
A Miss Marvel game, like
I mean, that could be
Captain Marvel. I'm sorry, no.
Yeah, Captain Marvel.
Yeah, Captain Marvel. Yeah.
Yeah, because Miss Marvel was just in Avengers.
Sorry. Yeah.
So.
No, but like Captain Marvel, like after the events of the first movie, in between the first and the second movie, like why is she where she is, what she's doing, you know.
Yeah, like if they want to like tie it into any of the movies, or if Disney just is like, you don't have to tie it into the movies, but you have to use a character that's in a movie, and then go from there. Or honestly, what I would really want is a Daredevil game. I think Amy Hennig could do a really good Daredevil game. It would be single player, it would be linear, you could do cool things with the combat and the visuals of that game. That could work really well. A Luke Cage game could be pretty easy to make in terms of like, he's just super strong, so you don't have to do any crazy visuals. It's just like Luke Cage just beating the shit out of people. So there's a ton of possibilities that could be done, and I hope I'm not going to be disappointed, and it's just going to be like, hey, even though I like Deadpool, here's a Deadpool game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want that. No, I want something interesting. Give me a Squirrel Girl game, damn it. Give me that.
Well, hell, that squirrel holding that pistol or whatever broke the internet.
I mean, that's going to be the closest I'm going to get to a Squirrel Girl game, I think. All right, next story. This is something I kind of forgot was happening. THQ Nordic did a digital showcase last week. Pretty good presentation. I think it was around like 45 minutes. A ton of different stuff was announced there. I believe they showcased about 14 games. I'm only going to go with the highlights that me and Dave would recognize, because some of the stuff was kind of like, hey, here's like a strategy game, and here's another strategy game, and that's not really our cup of tea. But we got a trailer for Outcast 2, A New Beginning. So Outcast, this is a sequel to a game, I think, that came out in like the early 90s, or mid-90s. There was a remake for this game that came out, I want to say 4 years ago. It was decent. It was a decent remake of
VR
the
game,
original
wasn't it?
game. No. Yeah, you're thinking of. There's a different game called Outcast.
Okay.
But this is like an open world.
Okay.
I think it was an open world action game that like was before GTA 3.
Okay.
But GTA 3 was just so big that it overshadowed anything else. But Outcast 2 looks pretty good. It looks significantly better than the remake that happened a couple years ago. Specifically, I noticed the main character looks a little less like Nathan Drake. That was like a big criticism when they remastered the game or remade the game. It's just like, oh shit, they just made him Nathan Drake. Looks like they took some of that criticism, readjusted his face, so he looks more original than like Nathan Drake in space. Other things, there was AEW Fight Forever. They showed a little bit of that. It is definitely going for like the throwback N64 visual style. Like, it's not like super realistic like the WWE games. They're going for more arcadey, simple controls with a bunch of like mini games in there, which wrestling internet seems to have like short-term memory, but mini games were kind of something back from like the PS1 N64 and all the way up until like the PS2 WWE games had mini games. So AEW Fight Forever looks pretty good. I believe it's due this year. We'll see what happens in that, but looks pretty. It looks fun, and it just looks different. And then they showed like a new SpongeBob game. So the people that remastered the last SpongeBob game are making a new one. It's called Cosmic Shake. Looks pretty entertaining. I only put this in here because
SpongeBob-y.
Yeah, it looks. yeah. So it's a 3D platformer coming to PC, PlayStation, Xbox, Switch. And it's just basically SpongeBob traveling through time and space, I believe. So, everyone's doing the multiverse sort of shit. So is SpongeBob now. I guess the biggest news that came out of this was after the presentation was over, they teased a new game coming from the South Park studios. And I guess now they are partnered with South Park. So we'll probably get another South Park RPG.
The licensing for them seems to bounce every 3 or 4 years to somebody.
Yeah, because it was what
Ubisoft for a little while.
Ubisoft.
Somebody else before that, I feel like Stick of Truth.
Yeah, because
Ubisoft made 2. Stick of Truth and something else.
Obsidian made the first one with Ubisoft, and then Ubisoft took the second one internally and like dropped Obsidian, and then now THQ Nordic is going to be doing it, and I just don't know who's going to be working on it. I know South Park Studios is like a studio now, but I don't know exactly what that means in terms of relation to the other games that we've seen.
So for me personally, at the end of no continuation of Darksiders at all, from a THQ standpoint of what probably my highest rated IP that THQ owns of the ones that I'm aware of, is Darksiders. I did find out, and I missed this somehow. I'm not really sure how I missed it. Airship Syndicate, the company that had done Darksiders 1 and 2 and Genesis, is partnering with the Play Warframe developers. And they are making what appears to be a games as a service or an MMO that potentially could have Darksiders style combat. Airship Syndicate's done more, like they've done Battle Chaser or they've done some other games that are pretty good that a lot of people have enjoyed. But like if the potential for a Darksiders style game combat in an MMO looks very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I did forget to mention there is a Alone in the Dark reboot that was announced by THQ Nordic. Alone in the Dark, this is when people get mad. I believe that started on like the PS3 360 era, or at least that's the Alone in the Dark that I'm familiar with. You're going to piss Josh off now. I know, he's going to be like, it's a famous PC Engine game or some shit.
It's an expansion to Pong.
Yeah. As far as I know, I just remember the cover, the PS3 cover for Alone in the Dark, but this is like a reimagining of the series, so fresh take on it. Looked pretty interesting. The studio that's working on it, it's like Pieces Interactive, and they have people from Amnesia, Soma, and Evolve, Pacific Rim working on the game. Looks interesting. THQ Nordic, I'll give them credit, like, of the presentations we've seen, this is a pretty diverse selection of games with varying degrees of, I don't want to say quality because that sounds mean, but there's definitely like, hey, here's our AA game and here are our AAA games. And I appreciate that they're doing that towards it's like Alone in the Dark. Looks like they're putting a lot of money behind it, and you look at SpongeBob and you're like, they're putting the right amount of money that they need to put into a SpongeBob game. And then everything else, they had racing games, RPGs, strategy games, a wrestling game. They have like a very good library. And of the Embracer Group, this is only THQ Nordic. So there's a lot more that the parent company has. And I'm going to be fascinated to see how Embracer Group starts to present themselves in terms of like their different branches.
It's super interesting that they're just letting THQ Nordic like do their own, still be THQ Nordic versus like we're gonna do an Embracer presentation and it's 2 hours and it's a lot. It's 100 or it's 12, 14 games. Now it's like okay, here's THQ. Here in 2 months, here's somebody else. In 6 weeks, here's somebody else. Yeah, we'll see if that plays out. So.
Yeah, it's definitely the right way to do it. Like, THQ Nordic alone, I believe they showed 14 games, and then they said, like, we have, like, 25 unannounced games still coming.
Yeah.
And so THQ Nordic is pretty busy, but I kind of like the direction they're going, and this is the thing that we've been wanting to see of just, like, what is THQ Nordic going to do with all the IPs they've been acquiring the last couple years? And we finally got an answer of like, yeah, they're making new games, they're remastering games, but now it seems like they're leaning definitely more into like, we're making new games, we're rebooting things, we're not just remaking and remastering the IPs that we acquired. So good for THQ Nordic on that. All right, Dave, we're going to talk about something that you had brought up just a little bit last week because we were just starting to get the news story happen. But currently, Xbox and PlayStation seem to be kind of having like a battle of words in Brazil. So right now, Xbox, Microsoft have to go from like country to country and get approval for their acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And right now, it seems like Brazil is like the more contested area. Every other country seems to be pretty much like, cool, whatever. But Brazil, I don't know if that means like the Sony South American team is like a little bit more aggressive in some of these things compared to like the North American European team. But PlayStation basically came out during this and said the acquisition of Activision Blizzard is anti-competitive. Microsoft refuted that, pointing out that other third-party companies are okay with the deal. PlayStation is the only company that is against this deal taking place. And then Xbox separately said that it wouldn't make financial sense to make Call of Duty exclusive. Like, as far as they're concerned, they would be leaving money on the table if they would make it exclusive, and they are fully well aware of that.
Which they've been saying, whether we like it or don't like it, they've been saying it since this merger or this purchase was kind of announced.
Yeah.
I still think that it's going to be on Game Pass, and there's going to be like, 1 week or 1 month exclusive content to maps and stuff like that on Xbox. Like, it's just inevitable.
And that is something that Sony's kind of taken issue with, to where they said Call of Duty, it's its own genre. Call of Duty is a franchise that people make their decision on what console they buy based on, where Call of Duty is or where Call of Duty might have an advantage. And they think it's unfair that Xbox could potentially just put it on Game Pass day one or make it exclusive. And that's where they have a problem with it. My rebuttal to that is basically, you can't say that when you had like a 10-year DLC first exclusivity deal with Activision Blizzard for Call of Duty. You can't really then call out Xbox on potentially, doing Game Pass deals or doing whatever they can to potentially have some sort of exclusivity with Xbox.
You can't cry because Microsoft chose to buy the entire company and you didn't, which is fine if you didn't want them. But now you can't say like, well, you can't, like, having that stuff early or free is not fair. And Microsoft's like, you just had it. Like that was, again, like one of the pros that PlayStation 4 had is that they got the Call of Duty deal when it was launching,
that was huge.
And yeah, like that was, and then the competitive, like when all the Call of Duty competitive leagues were happening, they were playing it on PS4s. Like, it was a way to establish, like, you went from constantly seeing the Xbox 360 logo to now constantly seeing the PS4 logo. And that mattered. Like, that market share mattered. And, like, obviously it matters enough to Microsoft to do what they're doing, and to buy the company. And they just felt it was easier to buy and outright purchase the company. Like, we know that Warzone 2 is not going to be Xbox console only or PC. Like, it's a free to play game. Like, it's this huge vast thing. Sony's doing something kind of similar with Bungie. We don't know what the long-term effects of that are going to be. We don't know what the long-term effects of the Microsoft Activision thing are going to be. I think if we get more, like, if for whatever reason, if a sub studio within the Microsoft division gets to work on a Call of Duty game, like, maybe we don't see Call of Duty campaigns from Call of Duty Modern Warfare going forward, but maybe we see Call of Duty, an alternative take on World War II, and it's just a campaign. It doesn't have any multiplayer. That's the kind of stuff that they're going to pump to Game Pass. Yeah,
and to be fair, like, I totally understand PlayStation's stance on this, because they have to have this stance because they are trying to sell consoles. So of course they have to come out and they have to be like, this could hurt our business, because the governments are asking, is this going to hurt you? And PlayStation's like, yes, potentially it's going to hurt us. So both sides definitely have a case for, like, Xbox being like, don't worry, this is going to help us greatly, but we're not going to be dicks about it. But at the same side, it's like, but you could be a dick, and that's why, people are worried about this acquisition. Mm-hmm. And PlayStation is just trying to protect their business as well, because they know how big Call of Duty is. It's just kind of funny scene and being like, yeah, but if they pull some exclusive shit, that could hurt us. It's like,
well, then let Square put Final Fantasy 16 on Xbox.
Yeah, like figure, like it happens all the time. Like Deathloop was exclusive for a year, and it's still not on, Game Pass, and that's
it's not on Xbox.
We'll get to this. Yeah, so it's not on Xbox. Yeah, and we'll get to this. This is all related to basically them trading like insults and like not necessarily insults, but like just trading blows over in Brazil. Xbox came out and claimed that Sony is making deals that are blocking developers from releasing their games on Game Pass. It wasn't detailed in terms of, are they talking about games that PlayStation helps fund with third-party partners that, could become third-party, like other platforms after a certain amount of time, or if they're talking about new deals that are being made with PlayStation Plus, Premium and Extra. But Xbox is coming out being like, they're blocking us from doing business potentially. So
there are two scenarios in this situation that I'm okay with. If Sony or PlayStation, whomever, is paying for part of the development of a game, and in part of that development deal, they're like, you cannot put this on other subscription services. Like, you cannot allow this to go free on the Epic Game Store. You can sell it on the Epic Game Store. You can sell it on Steam. But
take our cut.
Yeah. But you cannot sign a deal with Epic or sign a deal with Microsoft to release this game on in a subscription base or free stance at all. Or if, again, they're coming to Sony for to help publish it, not even to develop it, but to help publish it. They're signing a deal that Sony would publish it for them, like they used to do with a ton of the indie games for a long time. Those two scenarios I'm 100% fine with. What I'm not fine with is like the rumors and stuff that we've heard of, like how to get your game like on the front page of the store. Like you have to pay a certain amount of money, and like we've heard that before. I'm not gonna get into details of what the exact is. I don't want to misquote anything or missay anything, but it sounds like there have been a couple hoops you need to jump through just to get Sony to advertise your game on their storefronts. If the problem that I would have is that if an independent developer comes to Sony and says, hey, like what would it take to get it on the storefront? Oh, it's going to cost this much money, and you're not allowed to sign a Game Pass deal. That I don't like. Like that's a dig and that's a block. Because we've heard that some of these Xbox Game Pass deals we get announced 6, 8, 10 months in advance for developers, and it allows them to make the game or to make the game better. And they use the funds and the money ahead of time and do it versus, and again, same thing. Like if Sony is helping the development of the game, helping the publishment of the game, then you can say, hey, for the first 18 months, this can't be on any other subscription services. Like 100%. But if they're sitting there saying, oh, if you want us to actually like help you sell copies of this game, you can't put it on a subscription service. I don't like that.
If you want to be in our summer deal thing and be a featured spot. And that's the problem is like, Xbox, they put this out there. I forget exactly how they put it out there, but I think it's all to deal with like the regulation stuff that they're going through right now. It was too vague in terms of like, what do you mean Sony's blocking stuff from Game Pass? Like, there's so many different scenarios that it could be okay and it could not be okay.
Like, Kenna Bridge of Spirits probably wouldn't have came out without Sony helping.
Exactly. And so you could see Sony being like, do not put this on Game Pass. Or do not tell people you're going to put this on Game Pass until a certain amount of time. So Xbox is a little too vague in terms of like what this actually means, because there are like a dozen scenarios where this is okay, and there's a dozen scenarios where it's not okay.
And also I feel like if Sony was really going to do it, they should have done it with MLB The Show.
Yeah, that one I feel like they got strong-armed into that one, and that could be why Xbox
these parameters exist now. So
yeah, because they didn't want to end up in that scenario again, especially when they're working with. I know they just acquired Haven, but before they acquired Haven, they were probably like, "Hey, we're going to fund this game. Don't you dare put this on."
Yeah.
Game Pass or the sometimes
or
always
or
monsters,
or
people
maybe
whatever.
like maybe there was rumblings about like, hey, like Microsoft's gonna give us this much money. Sony's like, well, we don't really want to give you that much money, or we don't want to upfront you that much money. And then they said, well, if we're gonna do that, then we might as well just buy you. Like that could have been a scenario of something like that. And if they buy them, they could definitely tell them not to put on Game Pass, obviously. Yeah. So yeah, like this sounds bad, but like we've seen paid for exclusive content before. Timed exclusives, early access exclusives, like all that stuff that's been paid for. Like we've seen it with Tomb Raider on Xbox side years ago. We've seen it with Deathloop just recently, Ghostwire Tokyo even more recently. So like this happens, and this is okay. This is business, but again, if they're being like, if you want to show up correctly in a search field, you can't put your game on Game Pass. If they're being dicky like that, that's not cool.
Yeah. And we see it all the time. I mean, we wouldn't have gotten that last Tomb Raider trilogy if Microsoft didn't upfront the money for some exclusivity. So
we wouldn't have got Street Fighter 5 if Sony didn't help him.
Exactly.
So like that's okay. Like that's those are all things that are good and part of business and going back and forth and doing business. Like those are fine. It's just if it gets kind of shady and dark, then I don't think it's fine from either company. Yeah. Like if Microsoft's saying you can't put it on PS Plus if you sign a a publishing deal with us or whatever. Like I don't.
Well, yeah, and I do want to actually look at a list of side by side just to see how many games are on both services, because I think all the Yakuza games are on both services now. So Sega's getting paid well on that. So I'm wondering when we'll start seeing like, oh, this left Game Pass, but it just popped up on PlayStation Premium, and we start seeing some of that.
I think it just kind of happened with like Marvel's Avengers more recently, right? Left Game Pass, or it came to Game Pass, left Plus. I don't know.
I think, yeah, I believe so. We'll start seeing that. I just realized we probably confused any fanboys listening because this whole news section, we were like either pro Xbox or pro PlayStation in different aspects of this. Because
both of us, we're pro business.
And that's what it comes down to.
Pro proper business.
Mm-hmm. It's where we can definitely see both sides of all these scenarios of like, they're two companies trying to turn a profit and trying to protect their IP, their brand. And it's just funny because this level of almost pettiness I haven't seen since the PS3 360 days. And it seems to only be coming out in this part of the world because it's where the current like arbitration and reviews are happening.
Yeah.
And I think this is the most we're going to see of this because I believe we are still like maybe a month out from the deal closing, and then it's just going to be a thing that exists that we don't really even notice anymore.
Yeah.
Until, like the next Spyro game is Xbox exclusive. Then we'll notice, but Call of Duty's safe.
Right.
And we'll see what happens. Like I feel like PlayStation now has to kind of come out and be like, "Well, we don't block people from going on Game Pass, but if we fund your game."
I don't think they should say anything.
It depends if this goes any further.
Yeah.
Because it seems like
right now where it is, I don't think they need to say anything.
Yeah. But eventually they could have to as this continues and both sides kind of like trade information. They might have to like either they will come out and say something or a developer will privately reach out to like Bloomberg or something and be like,
Schreier.
"Yep, totally made me sign some paperwork." But we'll see what happens with that, especially as PlayStation Plus Premium and Extra
evolves and grows.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the first in a couple of weeks that we don't appear to have anything that's been delayed. I mean, we didn't really put Hogwarts Legacy on here. Technically, that's been delayed, but it never really had a date. So it like gets weird.
I'm trying to stay away from those.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Hogwarts Legacy is pushed into February. The more intriguing part is I didn't realize it was coming to Switch, and B, it's not coming to Switch in February. It's coming to Switch later. And if you're anybody that's a Hogwarts fan, Chandler is a friend of the show. He got to announce the release date. That's cool. So I thought that was kind of cool. Chandler Wood, the community manager for them. So, all right. So what we're playing and watching. So for me, my playing is very bleak. Not really much of anything like I said, because I've had so much stuff going on at work. Watching, I took Owen. We took Owen on Sunday for his 7th birthday to see the League of Super Pets. So that was actually pretty good. As a kids movie and with enough adult entertainment in it as usual. So I was pretty impressed with that. I feel like Dwayne Johnson did a good job voicing. It was fine. It had, it had some of the pacing issues, but like Owen really enjoyed it. So if you have a kid that's, like 6, 7, 8, 9, like they'll probably enjoy it. I think it's coming to HBO Max probably pretty soon, if I had to guess.
It might be one of the last 45-day window movies because they are ending that soon, but I don't think they're ending that just yet.
I think I'm going to get the name wrong, but it's a movie that came out on Paramount Plus this week. Secret Hideout with Owen Wilson, another kids movie. We were trying to spend some time with Owen. Kids oriented movie where the dad's like a superhero and the son discovers his like hidden layer, and so definitely some interesting stuff in there as they're exploring his big entire like bat cave looking thing that he has. I think I talked about it a little bit last week, but we watched like the Hard Knocks for the Lions on HBO.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So that's pretty good. Again, even if you're not a huge football fan, I think you should check that out. And I think that is it. I started watching like Major League last night again because I just wanted to watch it. I think I kind of fell asleep watching that. I've kind of we've been just kind of watching just some some junk movies and stuff like that, just because Angela and I are just like pretty tired. So it's more like it's on. If we fall asleep watching it, if we don't fully pay attention to it, so be it. Starting to pay a little bit more attention to fantasy football. I do have a league that I've been with some guys in for 4 years, so I'm starting to try to get, I don't need to be like super prepared, and I don't need to do like pluses and minuses and pros and cons. Like I have a decent idea of what I'm doing, but I'm starting to pay attention to a little bit more of that. I've 2 of the 4 years that I've been in the league, I actually have been fortunate enough to win the league. So that's always fun. I might live stream that draft if you guys have any interest in that. When we do that draft on a Sunday evening or something, I might live stream that. I've live streamed a fantasy draft years ago back in the PS Nation days, and that seemed to do okay. Some people seem to have a little bit of fun with that. So mostly because I think you guys would just be super entertained by the group of guys that I play fantasy football with. They're a bunch of gamers spread out across the country. But yeah, that's pretty much it for playing and watching for me. I need to start Dante's Inferno. I have downloaded it, and I just need to have the energy for it. There's a big Destiny showcase next week on the 23rd, and then the new season for Destiny is next week on the 23rd as well, with another raid coming. So the 26th, tentatively, is day 1 raid for that. So I would plan on streaming that as well. It's an old Destiny 1 raid. I don't know which raid it's going to be yet. We'll find out on the 23rd. So. And then the raid's on the 26th, so that's where we're at with that.
So. For me, the only thing I've been playing is Rumbleverse. So this is I
wanted to check that out.
It's pretty fun. So this is the wrestling battle royale from Iron Galaxy and Epic Games. It's PlayStation, PC. I want to say Xbox with crossplay and all that stuff. This is, I believe it caps at like 40 players, but
45,
it's 45, yeah. It's your traditional battle royale where everyone drops into a map and the map gets smaller and smaller. But this is wrestling themed, so it's all melee combat, the costumes.
This is Iron Galaxy Atom Boy Studio, by the way.
Yeah, the people Dive Kick, Killer Instinct, and Porthouse Extraordinaire.
And free to play. I think you said free to play, but
free to play. Yeah. This is... all the cosmetics are wrestling themed. All the moves you're doing are wrestling moves. So it's kind of right down my alley in terms of like some of the Easter eggs and like knowing what moves are called. That it has all that built into it. Very vibrant, cartoony art style and music. Definitely is going for that like Fortnite-y Fall Guys sort of like combination, and I'm enjoying it because matches don't last too long. The world map isn't crazy big, so you get in and out of matches when matchmaking is working relatively easy. They definitely seem to struggle with their own success during launch week, to where matchmaking was pretty atrocious all the way through Monday, and then they did some server work and it worked pretty well, where I was able to get into matches after like waiting a minute or two, as opposed to over the weekend where I was waiting 5 minutes sometimes to get into a match. But the gameplay, all melee focused, and around the map is crates that you bust open, and they can have either boosts, so you can have power boost, stamina boost, or health boosts, and you can have a certain amount of those equipped at one time. It's basically like drinks that you take. I would assume it's called back to steroids in wrestling, and you just chug these different drinks, and you can only drink so many of them, so you can kind of build your character out that way in terms of like, do you want more HP or do you want more power, and how you're going to like approach enemies based on
essentially how much damage are you going to deal and how much damage are you going to take.
Exactly. So it's a fine balance to where early on I'm like, you know what? I want HP and I want stamina, so I can take some damage, but I also can run the fuck away and maybe pick at someone, because it's very simple control. You just have like a melee, and then you have like a grapple button, and the grapples do more damage, but they take a lot of stamina. So what I've been doing is I've just been kind of punching people, running away, punching them, running away, just going back and forth, and just chipping away at people, and that seems to be pretty successful for me. I haven't won a game, but I finished top 5 a couple times, and enjoying that dynamic. Also in these crates are moves that your character can learn, and the moves can be very basic stuff, but they also could be what they call vicious attacks, which is that your grapple. So you can get more powerful moves based on you finding the moves in the world, reading them, and adding them to your repertoire.
Do they stay in your repertoire after that match is over, or you have to find them again every match?
You have to find them again every match, but
okay.
In reality, as far as I can tell, I someone could correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like you're mostly just getting, like, your vicious, your grapple does a lot of damage already, and you can get them to do a little bit more damage, but in reality, when you're finding these new moves, you're just finding different, like, animations your character can do.
Okay.
But you're not at a disadvantage of like, oh, you have a vicious choke slam, but I have a vicious...
yeah, but it takes 6 buttons to execute it, you know?
You know, in terms of like just how much damage they do, to where it's just like, I have a vicious suplex, but you have vicious choke slam, but I don't think either one of us has more of an advantage based on a different move.
A vicious is a vicious is a vicious. So.
Exactly. So... It's That's just cool. More of just like you find something, you're just like, oh, I like the way this looks, so I'm going to look for this move.
Well, it's also like you're talking about a random number generation game, essentially, where like, oh, I opened this crate and it's like, oh, I got lucky and won the lottery this match. I have instant win card. Like, that's not fun for the other players.
And that's what they took into account, to where it's just like, oh, cool, I got a choke slam this round, but I'm not like upset that I didn't get it the last round. They built the world pretty nice in terms of like, if you jump on a car, it's basically like a springboard. You can climb up buildings, but that'll take stamina. So you have to pay attention to your stamina, because you're not just going to lift a player after you climbed up a building. You're going to have to stop for a couple seconds and regain stamina. But they definitely added different aspects of wrestling into the environment, to where you'll just go into an area and it's like a gazebo, but it's built like a wrestling ring. And you can bounce off different sides of it, jump off objects, bounce off objects, jump off a building and do an elbow drop for like maximum damage, to where, early on you saw a lot of people just climbing to the highest building and then just dropping elbows to anyone that's under them to do a crazy amount of damage. So there's a lot of like chaotic fun in this game. Will it last? Will it be the next big thing? I don't know. I hope people didn't give up on this game because of the really bad opening weekend. Yeah,
free to play and launch is always so important. Like, you gotta nail it. Like, Apex nailed it years ago, and we saw what they did for 6, 8, 9 months straight. Fortnite's obviously been able to nail it, but like, I think maybe Multiverse, is that what it's called? The other one,
Multiverses.
Multiverses is done a little bit of the beta and early access stuff before they go live. Rumbleverse had that, but not to this extent, of where like they were getting Multiverses was getting like what, 10 million players on it before it even officially released.
And then Rumbleverse was only doing beta weekends.
Yeah.
As opposed to Multiversus, which has been in beta for like, I want to say last like 2 months. And people have just been able to play it continuously. That ultimately could probably hurt Rumbleverse of just like bad timing in terms of like Multiversus is really hot. Season 1 just started, I want to say today. And, you know, people are data mining like, oh, look at all these characters that are coming. They just announced, you know, Black Adam and Stripe from Gremlins. And Rumbleverse, while fun, I don't know if it needs anything
it doesn't
extra.
have another character it doesn't have a licensed character to draw you in. Like they're 100% going to do like cosmetic crossovers with stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a D-Generation X crossover eventually if WWE lets them do stuff, and like they'll do a bunch of cool stuff like that, like Fall Guys has been doing, but versus Multiverses that's using nostalgia characters, physical
like,
characters versus nostalgia cosmetic.
Yeah, because when you look at Rumbleverse, I should say, that's the problem, is there's too many games like Verse and Versus in the title.
Yep.
But Rumbleverse, it because it's so focused on wrestling, they're limiting themselves to wrestling, and that could hurt them in the long run, as opposed to Multiverses, where people data mine that like, they just data mine that like the Wicked Witch from The Wizard of Oz is going to be in the game, and Beetlejuice, to where that's what Multiverses gets to play with. They get to go super nostalgic. They could grab new characters, and then when you look at Rumbleverse, it's just like, okay, they probably really need to get a WWE, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling deal in place just to give it like a little bit of a spark. Or just try and find something to attach itself to it, because while I think the gameplay is super fun, the competition is really hard right now. It's really tough out there for
it's not Fall Guys, like everybody can play and kind of push your way forward and have fun. There's going to be a little bit of strategy. Like my first couple games, I was just getting my ass kicked, and I was just like, man, I don't know about this game, until I finally figured it out, and I was like, okay, this game is fun. You as a competitive person and somebody that enjoys to play video games will continue to do that in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th match. Somebody might tap out after 4 and be like, F it, I can't do it.
Yeah, no, and that's something that hopefully they'll bid it. There was a tutorial, I skipped the tutorial because I played it, the beta or the alpha that was a couple months ago. So I need to get in there just to see, like, how is that tutorial, like, how would it be for someone who hasn't played this game before, you know, the first time they jump into it. But it looks promising. Like, after we're done recording, I'm probably going to hop on, try and do a couple matches, hope the matchmaking holds up like it did yesterday, and go from there. But that's pretty much it. It was Sarah's birthday this past weekend, so we ended up going on a mini trip with her family.
Do Sarah and Owen share a birthday?
14?
Yeah. I think
they do, yeah.
I think we forgot, but realize that every time.
Yeah. So yeah, we ended up just doing like a family trip with her family, and then we went to Six Flags.
Oh, nice.
And did some roller coasters. Before anyone messages me, we avoided the Six Flags stuff that happened Sunday. We went earlier in the weekend. But yeah, Six Flags was pretty fun. I'm not a big roller coaster person, but she likes roller coasters, so I'll go on roller coasters for her.
I think we're gonna have to take me, you, her, and Ange are gonna have to go to Cedar Point one day.
Yeah. I they have really good roller coasters there, so I'd have to build up the courage for that.
Well, if I go on it, you have to go on it, because I'm an old man, so you have to go.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so is that it for playing and watching?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, two couple quick questions. The first one is for you. It's from Darren Curtis. Hi, I'm JC. I was wondering what level you got to in Elden Ring. I'm going through it, and I'm level 86, and it's still low.
I think I tapped out around level 55, and I made it to the Academy, which I believe I was over-leveled for the Academy, but it was still difficult as hell. And around the Academy is where I figured out that, like, the thing that I love about Elden Ring is exploring the world, not interacting with the bosses. And luckily, for the most part, Elden Ring doesn't gatekeep you out of most of the game. If you don't hit specific bosses, you can just continue to explore. So I need to get back to Elden Ring. I don't think I'll ever finish that game, but I put about 60 or 70 hours into it to get to like level 55 or 60, wherever I'm at. And I think the Academy's only like 1/4 of the way through the game, 1/3 of the way through the game. So Elden Ring could be a forever game for me that if I get the motivation, I'll hop back in, put 50 hours in, and maybe hit the halfway point.
Right.
So.
All right, and then Stefan Wren writes, what is your favorite Star Wars film or TV show, and why? Mine is probably going to be Mandalorian. I just enjoyed it the most. I have good memories of watching it with Ange. That was kind of like one of the first things that came to Disney Plus that was like must-see Wednesdays or must-see Fridays. We were trying to watch it, not be spoiled by it online. I like Star Wars, but the movie story arc does not intrigue me anymore. Obi-Wan is probably a close second at this point in time, just because it was kind of giving me more information on Anakin at that time, which I thought was really cool. So that would probably be like my 1 and 2 right now.
Yeah, for me, I've seen pretty much all the Star Wars stuff except for the last film in the last trilogy, and then I haven't seen Boba Fett or Obi-Wan. I haven't
seen Boba Fett either. So.
Yeah, I don't think Star Wars is that good overall. Which I know is blasphemous to a lot of people, but I did like The Mandalorian a lot because it was pretty standalone. You don't really need anything else for it. Because I feel like it's really hard to go back to the original trilogy. Those movies are old movies.
Everybody says they're never going to do 4, 5. They're never going to redo 4, 5, and 6, and I kind of want them to.
I think it would be horrible if they tried, because the fan base. You would have to wait till most of those fans are dead. Before you try touching those movies. But like for me, like I didn't watch the original trilogy when I was a kid. I watched them when I was like in my early 20s, so they weren't as impressive as they could have been. And then I think I watched the prequels before I watched the original trilogy, and I found those movies boring. Then I went to the prequels, was like, this is old. And then the new trilogy I felt was trying way too hard to mimic and capture,
to make everybody happy.
Yeah, and it just tried too hard to be like, you remember this from the original trilogy? Well, we did it again with a different character. I did like Rogue One. Rogue One was a really good movie, and I think that's how they should approach.
Expanding the show on. They're supposed to be expanding a Disney Plus show on the Rogue One storyline too, I believe.
Yes, yeah. They're going to bring some characters from that movie back. Well, spoilers, everyone died in that movie. So it's like a prequel to that movie, I think.
Yeah. Or something.
Yeah. So I'd probably end up watching that because I did like Rogue One. But I also liked Rogue One because it was its own contained experience that worked really well, even if you didn't watch... Even if you didn't know what its place took in the main.
I think the biggest problem
story.
that Star Wars has is the time frames, obviously, because like you see some really cool, whether you like episode 4, 5, and 6 or you don't, like you all of a sudden now you're watching stuff with Darth Vader as like a teenager, Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader as a teenager, and they're doing some really great character development with the character and fleshing it out. And then you go and want to see like how it plateaus and stuff, and you go, like, to your point, you go back like 30 years when you're watching something. Like, so now it's like if you try to watch anything in actual timeline order, like you're watching something from 2020, and then you're watching something from 1995, and then you're watching something from 2007, and then you're watching something from 77.
And that's where I think like eventually I think Star Wars needs to be like, you know what, we're done with Skywalker.
Yeah.
We have an entire galaxy with interesting worlds and characters and alien races. Maybe let's not do a Skywalker thing.
You can hint about him and have whispers about him going on in the background, or little Easter eggs about the family, but I want to know more about
this specific planet or something.
Yeah.
Which is why I think Fallen Order did so well for some people, because as far as I know, that was like unrelated to all the other things. It was just in universe.
Yeah.
And it wasn't directly like, oh, Luke's going to pop up any minute now, or, some random character. Though I didn't play. Fallen Order might have like a Darth Vader moment or something, I don't know. But as far as I know, it doesn't. And I think that's what made that successful. And I want them to do that in Star Wars. You have a whole galaxy to play with. Mm-hmm. Lay off the one family. That's it.
All right. So that is our show for this week. A little shorter. Like we said, you can follow us on Twitter at Digital Days Pod. You can follow Michael at The First MJC. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. Our Patreon, Facebook, and Discord links are all in the show notes, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show. Following us on YouTube and TikTok and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff is free. Sharing the show to your friends is free. If you want to, give us some, monetization somehow, any way you choose, whether it's buying a T-shirt, supporting us on Patreon, or you already support us on Patreon, or following, or subscribing to us on Twitch, any of that stuff is optional, never required. There's a couple different tiers in there for Patreon if you choose to financially support us that way. So, other than that, I think that's all I have. So I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.